Hey everyone, my name is Charlie and today is the beginning of another reading vlog. It is Wednesday. I usually start these videos on a Monday. I usually start these videos with something actually done to my hair, but today we're giving the hair a rest. So you're getting to see it with nothing shoved into it. Some days, as we know, are kind of like a lazy day, which is why we end up in the long sleeve yellow top again. We're seeing this a lot at the moment. Bank holiday Monday happened and I had this huge idea that I was going to read The Vicar of Bullhampton by Anthony Trollope over Sunday and Monday. So I brought the book downstairs and then around about 12:30 I got a message from my sister, did I want to go for a walk around the forest? And usually around 2ish I'll head out with Sal, but I thought, okay, we'll get this walk in quicker, all that. My mum wanted to go to the pub in the afternoon, so I thought, well, we'll get this done in earlier and then have some time. My sister said she didn't want to walk her dog too much because it had done a lot of activity. We were out for 2.5 hours. And this always happens. We'll start on a walk and we'll think we're not going to do too much, and then we'll get into talking with each other and my sister will be enjoying herself and we'll be wanting to continue the conversation, like, well, we'll just keep on this route then. And we did this big loop that I have been doing recently, although she always takes this left that goes down a steep incline. So I said to her, well, you're going to have to hold the dog then, as in my dog, because I can't both balance going down this steep hill and hold on to Sel. Didn't get home until around 2:30, went to the pub with my mother and we weren't back until 5 and then had to make tea. So absolutely no reading got done on Sunday at all. And then when I woke up on Monday, I was thinking, I don't really want to read The Vicar of Bullhampton. But I got it into my head that I would be able to read another massive tome, and that is The Dragon Reborn by Robert Jordan, and this is the 3rd book in the Wheel of Time series. So I got up Monday morning thinking, well, we'll pivot. I wasn't going to read this book, but it's been on my mind a lot recently, especially since I finished Fall of the Argosy, that I wanted to read a fantasy novel, and this is the only fantasy novel I have unread. And even though I wasn't going to be reading it until I read all the other books on my shelves, since it was a birthday book, it just wouldn't veer out of my mind. And you know when one of these books is just calling to you and you're like, yeah, I'm going to have to ignore everything else right now. It would have made me give The Vicar of Bullhampton a bad opinion, and I still want to finish that before Sunday. So before September, because we've got plans to read more Trollope this year. I had so much happen on Monday that I didn't really get the time to read anything anyway. So yesterday I decided I'd sit down and I was going to try and read the entirety of this tome in one day. And this, you know, we're still waiting for stuff back from beta readers, so we're not doing much writing anyway. And I thought, dedicate the entire time to reading The Dragon Reborn. And I only made it through 350 pages. So today I am being insistent that I am going to finish this. I only have 200 pages left now. We are about to head into another section following Matt and see how he gets on. That's something about this book that has been intriguing to me, is the fact that this isn't following Rand so much. We've seen his perspective a lot in the first 2 books, and he's very much been the central protagonist of the series, the character that everybody else orbits. He's supposedly this almost chosen one type figure. But in this book, we don't really see him. We see all the characters around him. So we begin with about 100 pages from the perspective of Perrin and what's going on in the mountains. And then we get to see what's going on at the White Tower and explore the fallout from the 2nd book through this one. And I have been enjoying it. Clearly, I read 350 pages in a day and now I've read another 100. It is 12:30 and I'm hoping, as I say, to get it finished. I think I'll read for the next hour and a half, hopefully get to page 500, then take Sally out, and once I get back, then knuckle down and read the final 129 pages. So far, this has been reminiscent of everything I like about fantasy. Now, I have been reading up more about the Wheel of Time as I've gone on and hearing more about what fans don't like and that sort of thing. And apparently after the 3rd book, this is when it veers away from Tolkien the most. That's something that I read Robert Jordan did, and is something I discussed when I first read The Eye of the World last year, and that was he wanted readers of fantasy to feel comfortable, and so he based the world on a Tolkien-esque world in the beginning, but he does veer away from that as people settle into the series, and apparently that is seen much more in the fourth book. For me, I'm able to recognise issues and still get on with the series, so Nineve, or I know Rosamund Pike says it differently because I have listened to the audiobook as well when I've been cleaning and cooking. That's how I'm saying it. She tugs on her braid a lot. Like every sentence in the first 100, every sentence from page 100 to 200 that she was featured in, it felt as though she was tugging on that darn braid of hers. And I do like to see how she and Egwene are fighting more nowadays. Not necessarily like, it's not like huge bickering, but it's like this struggle to recognise that they both on equal pegging now. And it's certainly interesting from that perspective. Whereas in the first book, there seemed to be a lot of women only talking about a certain specific chosen one, being Rand, and their relationship with him, and everyone fawning over him. It's been nice to actually see discussions about war and what's actually going on and how they are going to work to make sure that evil doesn't win. And I like that about this book, especially a recent discovery about specific characters and a specific type of people that I hadn't seen featured in the book before. So as I say, hoping to finish this today, which will have meant I've read it in 2 days. And I hate when I do this because then I'm like, well, why don't I read 600 pages every 2 days? And the fact is that outside of reading, when obviously when I give myself dedicated reading days, as I was trying to do with the bank holiday, then yeah, I'm going to be able to read. But I have other things on which I don't remind myself of often enough. And one of the only reasons I managed to read so much yesterday is because I took myself on a walk down the towpath, which is close by. I was going to walk down the towpath on Monday actually, but when I got to the one-way system, traffic was blocked again because everybody was going to football, and it's much easier just to go left and head towards the forest than it is trying to edge out and nearly get hit by however many cars are there because people are idiots. Otherwise, once I've read that, then it will be a case of going into the Vicar of Bullhampton and reading as much of that as possible tomorrow. And then I think I'll definitely, I don't think I'll definitely do it, but part of me thinks that I ought to try and find the specific place in the audiobook to listen to and just try and do what I've done with The Dragon Reborn to get through that before the end of August. I should be hearing back from our beta readers in September. I have spoken to Dane now and he has agreed he's going to edit Mistakes Me in Murder. So I think all of next week, book-wise, there might not be much reading done, but hopefully I'm working Monday and then try and dedicate some writing time to Tuesday and Wednesday. Writers group's back on Thursday and I'm hosting Poems and Pints on the Wednesday, so I'm a bit busy next week. There won't be as much reading done. So I think that's why I'm trying to knuckle down this week and get as much done as possible when it comes to reading. Sometimes I question why I chose to make that whole thing for myself that I wasn't going to read my birthday books until after I had read all of the books from my shelves. I know why I did it. It's because I didn't want to fall back into that cycle of not reading the books that had been on my shelves the longest. I feel like this was worth it, to break my own promise to myself and just read the book that kept calling to me from my shelves. Maybe if I'd done this weeks ago, I would have read more in August. That is me for today. I might speak to you tomorrow when I finish this book and give you my final thoughts on it. Then we're back at work, and I know for a fact that Friday is going to be a tough one because I only have one volunteer booked in for the afternoon to do the till, and the other volunteer who works in the back only prices and researches specific things. They don't accept and sort donations, so it's going to be a tough one on Friday, but we'll do it. I am going to go and have some coffee, so I'll see you when I see you. I relocated my hat because I could not be bothered doing anything with my hair today. I did it. I finished reading The Dragon Reborn yesterday at around about 7:30 in the evening, which means that I did manage to read this book over 2 days and immediately did exactly what I said I would do, which was to start thinking, oh, well, if I can do this in 2 days, then really I can read 600 pages every 2 days. I'm like, no, we can't. But we have to remind ourselves of that. I have to say that this was a really great addition to the series, and I like the fact that we explored other characters' lives away from the protagonist of the first 2 books, who was Rand. I know that we've always gone into various protagonists' tales and seen what they were up to, but I like the fact that the other characters were the main focus in this one. However, that did mean that the final 30 pages that reintroduced a certain character felt a bit too rushed, and I didn't like the fact that this character was suddenly the focal point for the climax because they'd done so little in the book otherwise, and I felt like the other characters should have really been the characters whose perspective we saw these scenes from, given they were the characters we'd followed for the majority of the story. And due to the way this story ended, it felt like we didn't get a resolution to those character stories for this book. I mean, one part, which was a quest for villains that we met in the previous book, did come to some form of resolution, and obviously this is a 14-book series with the addition of a prequel, so we are going to see the ending of this explored further. But it also felt like the final scene was going over old ground. It felt very much like the ending of the first book and the ending of the second book. And I'm just wondering, is every single book going to end the same way, in fire? I would have preferred a different ending, but up until those final 30 pages, I was thoroughly invested. It's just I wanted to see specific characters get a better resolution and to be the main focal point, because they had been for the majority of this book. And had we followed a certain character more than we had followed them in this book, when we got to that ending, it might have seemed more fitting, but it didn't work for me to have them take charge for the last 30 pages. I felt little connection to them in this book, given that we'd spent no time with them. I'm still looking forward to going on with the series. I haven't plans yet to go out and buy the 4th book. If I get the urge to read a hefty fantasy novel, then that's probably what I will go out and do, get the next book. But I am back to wanting to prioritise the books on my shelves. I just had to get this one out of the way. It was a hankering that would not dissipate. So this morning I picked up The Vicar of Bullhampton by Anthony Trollope again, and I have read a further 70 pages, bringing me to page 130. And my aim with this is to try and get as close to page 250 as possible, to read another 100 pages tomorrow and then another 100 pages and finish it on Saturday evening, because I want to read this in August. I am shocked by certain events that have taken place within this book. I never expected Anthony Trollope to write a book like this, and at the moment, I just with the last 50 or so pages, I'm reminded of a thriller. It's felt very much like a page turner given certain events that have taken place, and I'm very interested to see how certain actions affect this community and just see where Anthony Trollope takes this story. He's also poked fun at Dickens again. And honestly, the number of times I've seen Anthony Trollope poke fun at Dickens, it just makes me laugh. Invested in this, and one of the good things about this Anthony Trollope book in particular is the chapters are relatively short. So I find that I do feel like I'm moving through it quickly, but I'm not. Sometimes with a book, I can read 2 pages a minute. With this book, I was reading 1.5 pages a minute. But with this one, I am only reading 1 page a minute, which means I have got about 5 hours worth of reading ahead of me when it comes to this one. Which, you know, given the grand scheme of things and the way that we binge watch TV shows in the past, it's nothing really. Today, plans are to read The Vicar of Bullhampton and take Sally out for a walk down the towpath. It's feeling decidedly autumnal today. It was yesterday a bit, but by the time I got to the forest yesterday, it had warmed up, so I was carrying my coat most of the way. But this morning, it has felt a bit autumnal. And it did feel down the towpath as well, because most of the boaters had got their fires on. There's a certain scent of smoke on the towpath when it's cold that always evokes that sense of autumn to me. Even though we are technically, like, it's not supposed to happen until next month, is it really? Autumn comes around September, October and November, and then we go into winter if we're following this seasonally. But there's certainly more of a chill in the air this morning, but I do think that's also because it's cloudy and I was up rather early. My dad even said to me, "What are you doing getting up this early?" I said, "I woke up and couldn't sleep and I want a brew, so I'm here." You'd think I'd have read more in that time, but no, I just fell into a hole of watching nonsense content on YouTube. I should watch more Booktube content. Yeah, I should actually support the people who I claim to support, shouldn't I? Anyway, back in work tomorrow, so we'll see how tough that's going to be, and I'll see you then. It's Friday and I am back in work. I've just seen that I have managed to get another volunteer in this morning. However, they are one of the people who works in the back. That does mean that I will have somebody who can accept donations there, which is always a good thing, while I'll be watching the shop, minding the till. You know what I'm gonna say? I did not read as much of the Vicar of Bullhampton as I wanted, and that is because I started watching One Piece, the live action version that is currently on Netflix. As I mentioned earlier in the week, I've been in this fantasy adventure mood, so I read The Dragon Reborn and then I kept thinking about this. I think I was looking for recommendations and this came up and I thought, well, let's just go. And I watched 2 episodes and then looked into it a bit further. I'm pretty sure this is a TV show that I watched a bit of the anime when I was younger, and it's such a coincidence that this morning I wake up to the news from the BBC that they are apparently going to have 1085 episodes of the anime going on iPlayer before the end of the year, with the first set of episodes going on the 1st of September. If I watch that, I'll know for certain whether I've seen it, but I definitely feel like I have. It's a show and a manga series that has eluded me for years. Basically, everybody was talking about this when I was reading manga when I was younger, and I could only get it out of the library, so I was very limited to what I could read, and even then they wouldn't have full series. I definitely never read it because I could never find the first volume to then go on and read more, and now it's been going for 27 years and there is just this whole wealth of books that I'm probably never going to find the time to read, but the show is there. And so I'm going to be one of those terrible people who doesn't read the original and just goes straight to the adaptations. But I enjoyed this. It was definitely the fantasy adventure sort of thing that I wanted to be watching, and was a bit grimmer than I anticipated, and I like that. My plan is to watch that and then go and watch the anime and then have this be my show for the end of the year, really. You know, we had Modern Family at the start of the year, Drag Races run us through a lot of the year with US All-Stars, Canada versus the World, now Global All-Stars. We're about to go into UK, which I've not watched for 2 years, but I'm thinking I may as well now we're here. I haven't watched any of the international ones. They're over here. So why don't we just go to One Piece next and find out whether we actually did watch this when we were younger. But yeah, like I say, there's a few things in here that just feel reminiscent of things that I can recall watching as a child. Although that happened a lot when I was younger too. There'd be so many anime series that would come on Fox Kids or Jetix, or CBBC would show them, and then they'd just disappear and you'd never hear any more about them. A few years back, I found out that a show that I'd been watching when I was younger and really enjoying, they actually did a second series to it that I never got to see. So will I revisit it now I'm elderly? Probably not. Like this, think that the person playing Luffy is not a brilliant, like, I don't want to say a brilliant actor because I haven't seen the full range of their work, but I felt like they were very confident and assured of the role and played it very well as the main protagonist, and I look forward to watching more and seeing how the story progresses. Which means, as I say, I didn't read as much of the Vicar of Bullhampton as I wanted, but we're going to fight really hard and try and get this finished before the end of August, the start of September, because we've got plans for next week. I am going to implement edits that I've received from beta readers onto Mistakes Mean Murder, and hope to have that done over the first fortnight of September, and then send that to Dane and await his comments. In the meantime, whilst this is being looked at and edited, I don't know where I'll go. I was speaking to Emily of Novell Novels yesterday because she is one of my beta readers, and she said it might make sense to write the charity shop novel since it does link in to the cozy crime, given a new aspect that appears. But at the same time, none of these books have to be read together. And I can talk more about that once the book is out and once more people have read it. And if you've read a lot of my books, everything will make sense. It makes sense in my head, but some people do get confused by timeline things. And I did always say for years that the second Alice book had to come out before the final Doris book. And I said that for ages, and everyone's like, no, we want Doris now. And so I wrote Doris, and now people who are reading the second Alice book are realising why I said it had to come out before Royally Doris. But other people will find out why. Yeah, I did say I might create a timeline video for that. Here until 5, go home, probably get stuck in traffic again because we've still got temporary traffic lights, and then we'll do it all again tomorrow when I'll be here to round things off and end this video. But I did just want to say, since I am still in this fantasy adventure mood, has anyone got any fantasy book recommendations? Because it's a genre that I've neglected for a very long time, and whilst I've been focused on Robert Jordan, I would like to see what other fantasies out there, what's popular at the moment, and see whether it's still in keeping with my tastes. So yeah, if you have any fantastical recommendations, then please do send them my way as well. And I am going to go and make a cup of coffee. It's Saturday, and when I arrived home from work yesterday, I was feeling the exhaustion from it. Basically, I decided to heft a bag of books outside. It proved a bit too heavy for me, hurt my hip and my knee, and I was like, well, I'm gonna have to have a bath. So I did that in the hopes of alleviating some of the pain, and didn't get around to editing the video I wanted to get edited, that I wanted to get online yesterday. So I'll have to do that when I get home and have that go online today, which does mean that the amount of time I'll have to read will be limited. So I definitely do not believe I'll be finishing the Vicar of Bullhampton this month, which really makes me ashamed, because this was one of my targets, my goals for the year was to read more Anthony Trollope. I only wanted to read 4 for this year, and I've read 1 the entire year. Now, the Vicar of Bullhampton is something that I am enjoying. However, I'm finding that one of the plots involving a romance, I really don't care. I don't know whether this is because I've seen Trollope do romance a lot now, and I feel like I know how this is going to turn out, but he's very interested in the plot surrounding the murder of this farmer and how this might affect the community. And that went on really quickly, and it was done within about 30 pages. Now, I know it's going to come back, and it's going to be a running theme throughout the book, but it's just, I feel like everything gets slowed down when we've got to hear about this darn romance between a certain character and another character. I don't know what it is about my reticence to read classics, really, because I enjoy Anthony Trollope when I read his works, but I never think, oh, let's pick up one of those books. I don't know whether it's because it feels like they take a bit more time. I haven't quantified what it is that makes me not reach for them as often. Maybe it's just the thing that I read these books slower, and because I do videos like this with the vlog style thing, I think we're not getting enough read. I don't know. I just wish that I'd read more of it is the thing. But you know, I'll knuckle down and read as much of it as possible tomorrow, so I don't have a lot left to read in September. I did get my feedback back from another beta reader, and I was incredibly grateful for that, especially the amount of work that they've put into reading and analysing Mistakes, Me and Murder. They have brought up a very interesting point about a certain aspect of the book. Now, this aspect of the book has been there since I first started planning it, and is one of the more convoluted bits of information in there. And it's one of the things that I've wondered about cutting out entirely in a whole kill your darlings style scenario. But the reason I don't do that is because I wanted to show how much of an idiot a certain character is. And then one of the points that I liked was that this beta reader in particular mentioned how I
should I mention names? Well, I'll mention it. This one was Brian from Bookish. I reached out and asked him whether he would beta read the book for me because I knew that he'd read An Heir to Murder, and I was just really looking for the feedback I thought that I could get from him, and I did. And he mentioned how I describe certain characters, but then I seem to forget to describe the physical characteristics of any other characters. And this is something that I've noticed, not just with my characters, but with places as well, because they are so fixed in my head as to what they look like, and I can see them in here, that doesn't always make it down onto the page. So like, I'll give a character a name. There is a new character turning up in this book, and she's got a name, and the only thing we find out about her in the beginning is that she has suede calf-high boots, and that's it. That's the only characteristic she has for anyone to figure out what she looks like. In my head, I know exactly what she looks like. I know who her friends are sat around the table. I know exactly where this table is, what the setting looks like that they are in, but the reader doesn't get that. And the same happens for quite a few characters. Part of me thinks it's this thing of, because I tend to write the dialogue first, and I get an idea of who characters are through dialogue, and I know what they look like. And another part of me thinks it's because I know that when I started writing, readers would say about how visual my scenes were and how I described absolutely everything. And yet when it came to actually putting it all together on the page, I could never figure out properly how to do description and to have it in keeping with the narrative voice, but also have action there. And obviously description should be active anyway, and you should be able to do it in a certain type of way, but I just didn't want it to turn into like this whole thing of brown tresses and blue eyes and cascading and all this sort of stuff. But Brian is right, we do need to actually say what these characters look like at some point, just for the reader's sake more than anybody's. I mean, I know what they look like even if nobody else does. A point that keeps turning up loads is that there's a bit with a convoluted family tree. Every beta reader so far, that's my friend Joy, Emily of Novel Novels, and now Brian, have talked about how this timeline, this family tree is incredibly confusing and convoluted, and it's like any aspect that I based on real life is the part that we have the problem with. So the crux of this novel, one of the big motives within this book that I won't tell people, is based on a story within my family, and so I based that aspect on that. So the family tree comes out and everyone's saying to me, this is confusing, we need more clarity here. And I'm like, yeah, I get it, because every time I mention my family tree to anybody, or I'll mention this auntie or like this sibling or something like that, they're like, I get confused by your family tree. I'm like, well, I'm the one having to live with it. So yeah, I get it. So I'm thinking about ways that I can work on that, and all these other bits and pieces, which I'm both looking forward to and terrified of. But it's also what I needed with this book. I knew that it wasn't yet at its best. I can just tell these things, but with sending it out to the beta readers, it also became a thing of, I've looked at this for a while, I need to know whether other people have the same worries that I have. And unfortunately they do, but hopefully I can sort that out, and if I can't, well, great stuff. Anyway, a few weeks ago I left my headphones in the kitchen at home, and I don't know what happened to them. I'm worried somebody accidentally picked them up and threw them away with a load of rubbish. So I'm using these other headphones that I found at the shop. They aren't proper Apple headphones, and the end keeps coming out of them, and they just don't work so well. And that is currently the issue that I've got. Anyway, at least we finished one book this week. It wasn't on our TBR, and we said we weren't going to read it until we'd read all the other books from our shelves. So we're just proving that, as well as being an outfit repeater, Charlie is a liar. Anyway, if you have read either of the books that I've mentioned in this video, then please feel free to discuss them in the comments. I hope that you have enjoyed this video, because until next time, that is all.